Hi, this is Keith Cox, Seafood Analytics. I'm the Chief Scientific Officer, and welcome to another week of Fish Talk with Keith and Chuck. And Chuck and I were sitting on a Zoom meeting, waiting for people to come on, and I was telling him about one of the kind of little specialty things I do with some of my salmon. It's March now, and what I do with my salmon from last year. And sometimes I'll take that salmon and I'll take the fillet off the skin, and then I'll actually put it in a Vitamix and blend it. And then, I kind of make it.
Time out. What's a Vitamix?
Oh, it's a blender. It's like an ultra high speed blender. It spins so fast that you can make soup out of it. It actually heats the soup up because it goes at some astronomical speed. And so, but I put the fish fillet in the blender, and then I'll make it, have a consistency.
So you thawed the fish out, right? This is fish that you caught or you bought and you froze it, right?
Yes.
Okay, and it's been in the fridge for a year, or it's been in the freezer for a year. You're like, I'm not sure about the quality anymore. So you thaw it out, you fillet it, or do you fillet them beforehand, or what's your frozen fish look like?
It's filleted with skin on, and so then I take the skin off, and then I'll cut the rib bones out, and then I'll put it in the blender and mix it, and then I use that kind of puree, and I'll put it in scrambled eggs or make fish tacos or add onions and stuff to it. Then you brought up the Gefilte fish or something along those lines.
Gefilte fish. No, Gefilte, Gefilte fish.
Gefilte fish. I don't know anything about gefilte fish, and so that's why we decided to have Fish Talk about gefilte fish. And so I'm going to learn about gefilte fish. Did I say it right? Gefilte fish.
You're getting better.
So what is gefilte fish?
It's not a species of fish. It's really like a recipe. It's a traditional Jewish recipe. It came from Central Europe or Eastern Europe, so like Poland, Germany, Latvia, Russia, areas like that. And the Jewish population ate a lot of it. And it's made with usually freshwater fish, because a lot of those areas were landlocked, and freshwater fish is what they had available to them.
So also probably more of a white fish, because a lot of freshwater fish are probably more whitish.
Yes and no. I mean, the traditional three fish in the United States are pike, carp, and whitefish. And certainly pike and whitefish are very low-fat white meat, but carp is pretty oily, so it actually makes a nice combination. You have an oily fish to balance out the dry whitefish. If you had three dry whitefish, it's going to be a kind of a dry gefilte fish. The reason why I bring this up, because I was a young fishmonger working in a fish market, and I remember the first time a lady came in and she says, for the 23rd, like a couple weeks away, she wanted to place an order for pike, carp, and whitefish. And I thought that was kind of odd because she had never ordered those fish before. She always bought salmon or something else. And what I didn't know is that she was Jewish, and she was making this as a traditional Passover meal. So it's something that's served really any time of year for the Sabbath on Saturdays. But certainly for Passover, it's a very traditional meal. And you can certainly buy gefilte fish in a jar. It's in like a fish stock, in a jar on the shelf in grocery, and that's certainly one way to do it. But people traditionally like to make that themselves.
So it's three species. Is it a blend of?
Yeah, you want to use a couple. You want to use at least two different types of fish. That's kind of traditional, and then you want to, if possible, use freshwater fish. So what happened to me that first time? I called up, my supplier who shipped product to my store, and they said, "Wow, there's no way I'm going to be able to get pike, carp, and whitefish. Everybody wants it. I can't get it. It's wild, and I'm going to try to get it, but I don't know what's going to be here in 2 weeks because it's mostly wild fish." So sure enough, I think at that time I got a little bit of whitefish. I got no pike. I got no carp. I ended up having several customers asking about it, so I had to get other freshwater fish. So I think I got some trouts. So here's some other species you could use. You could use white perch. You could use a hybrid striped bass. That's a really nice option there. Mullet. And then if you get in a pinch, I think you could use tilapia and even salmon. They're not necessarily all freshwater fish, but there's nothing saying you can't use a saltwater fish. But freshwater.
What about catfish?
You can, sure, absolutely. You cannot use catfish because the fish have to have scales. right? To be kosher fish in Jewish law, you cannot use catfish. So take that back. I
Interesting.
misspoke.
No smooth fish. Smooth skin fish.
Smooth fish. Yep.
Huh.
So no swordfish, no shark, but preferably freshwater fish. And those are some of the ones you want to use. And what they do is they're going to grind the fish up, like in a grinder. And, maybe they have a Vitamix.
Like I did.
Exactly. So that's what made one of the things that made me think about gefilte fish was your Vitamix story. So you mix the fish up. They're going to mix it with maybe a little bit of onion, some kind of breading, either like dried matzahs or some kind of dried bread, maybe a little bit of egg to hold it together. And then traditionally they make like a fish cake or a ball or a patty out of it. And that's one of the ways to do it. The old-fashioned stuff back in the 1800s and 1900s in Europe, they actually stuffed the fish skin. So as a fishmonger, you need to know this because you don't want to be embarrassed like me that first time that I had no idea what it was. So when you prepare it, you want to buy whole fish, right, from your supplier. Then you want to fillet the fish, for the customer, right when they get there to buy the product or just before the time they get there. So you're going to fillet the fish, you're going to skin the fish, but you're going to keep all the bones and you're going to keep all the skins. Because if they want to stuff it with skins, they could stuff the skins, which is a really traditional old way to do it. The other thing is they're going to poach this mixture. So they're going to grind up all this raw fish. They're going to make the patties, but then they're going to poach it. And instead of poaching it in water, they're going to use a fish stock. So they're going to take the bones and potentially the skin, boil it down, make a real nice brothy, meaty, fish meaty stock, and they're going to boil it in that. And that's traditional gefilte fish. And it's really quite tasty, quite a tasty dish. But it's something the fishmonger just needs to know. It's an embarrassing thing if you don't. The fishmonger is supposed to be the seafood expert, so you're supposed to know, at least what your customers know, and usually more about most things. Now, do you need to know how to make gefilte fish, and have you done it at home? I don't think that's critical, but I think you definitely need to know what species go into it, how to prepare it, how to fillet the fish and prepare it, and give them the bones in a separate bag, the bones and skin in a separate bag, fillets in another bag, and then they can prepare that meal properly. And that's the story of gefilte fish as far as at least what I know of it.
Yeah, because you don't want to be like, oh, I've got some catfish you can use, and then
right.
totally go perpendicular with the whole process. Well, that's really some good information. I had no idea, and it all started out with me blending fish from my freezer, and making fish tacos out of it. So that's really cool. I might have to look up some recipes on gefilte fish and do that myself and see how that turns out.
Yeah. So when we talk about gefilte fish, we talk about lesser used species that are inexpensive. And remember, fish was the food of the poor, of the peasant, of the common man, because fish was the cheapest protein. For the longest time, that's who was eating fish, because they could catch it themselves. It was free, or someone else caught it, and they would sell it relatively inexpensively. So it was always a pretty inexpensive product. Plus, you had to sell it right away. So if you caught fish, you couldn't try to hold out for a high price because you had to sell it in a day. You didn't have refrigeration and ways to refrigerate that stuff. You had to sell it quick. So you need to price it low, get rid of it, and that's the way fishmongers work.
Well, perfect. Well, thanks for that information on the gefilte fish. Did I say it right again?
Close enough. That'll work.
Close enough. And so hopefully that's some background for our fishmongers out there so they can, educate themselves or some of the people that they work for to better be informed when they encounter consumers, especially during Passover when they're looking for specific species for this. So thank you very much, Chuck.
Woohoo! Yeah, no problem. My pleasure.
Bye-bye.